Happy International Women's Day, everybody. Welcome to the Charter for Compassion, Gender Partnerships, Women and Girls sector. I am Sarah Jamil, co-lead with Donna Mills of the sector. And we're excited to just host an impromptu conversation between the three of us. I've been part of the charter since 2013, part of the women and girls sector since 2018, and then I became co-lead 1 or 2 years ago, and we transitioned the women and girls sector name into gender partnership sector.
Welcome. Good morning. Yeah, welcome. And I'm Donna Mills, and I am co-facilitator with Sarah. And we have Hyacinth with us, Myers from London, and she is part of our core circle. And yes, we recognized a while ago that the healing that we wish to see for women and girls might only happen in partnership with men and boys and also gender fluid communities. And so if we wish to have a safe and sacred space on this planet for women and girls, we need to have a safe and sacred place for everybody, really. So for men and boys, LGBTQIA plus communities, everybody on this planet deserves safety, reverence, recognition. And so that was the impetus that, or the invitation we felt to shift from just women and girls to gender partnerships. And then under gender partnerships, we have 3 initiatives where each of our sectors can feel like they have their own safe place. So women and girls, men and boys, and like I said earlier, LGBTQA plus, IA plus. And Hyacinth, would you like to give a little shout out to yourself, introduce yourself?
Say Thank hello. You. Thanks, Donna. Thank you, Sarah. So my name is Tyson Myers. I was trying to think how long I've been part of the charter. I've been part of the core circle just over a year, but I think I signed up for the charter maybe around the same time in the 2016, maybe 2015. Mm-hmm. And I just actually, for me, I do work with women, but my background is in community work, and I really love the way the charter is, and obviously we'll talk about a little bit about the charter as well. But I just really, it resonates with me, even though I'm all the way in London, UK, and a lot of them are based in the US, but don't let it put you off, because actually, I think this year's women's, the Break the Bias really has shown this group, being from different parts of the world, actually how inclusive the charter is, how I feel anyway. So I'm going to send it back over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. Yeah, we all just touched on the things that we will talk about today. So I thought, well, first of all, we invite all of you to check out our sector page. You go onto charterforcompassion.org and you'll go under sectors, and you'll find the gender partnership sector. Under there, you'll find women and girls. And there's a ton of information, great resources, plus all our past programming. We have been breaking the bias since the inception of women and girls within the charter, but also the whole Charter for Compassion has been doing it. Now, I thought it would be great, Donna and Hyacinth, if we actually read from this year's theme, the call to action, and then we lead into what we're committed to at the Charter for Compassion, and then we start our juicy conversation after that. Yeah. So let's just
read the first.
Yeah, I just have to pull it up just a second. Okay, so I'm reading directly off the International Women's Day page. So let this be our grounding together. Imagine a gender equal world, a world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination. a world that is diverse, equitable, and inclusive, a world where difference is valued and celebrated. Together, we can forge women's equality. Collectively, we can all break the bias. Individually, we're all responsible for our own thoughts and actions all day and every day. We can break the bias in our communities. We can break the bias in our workplaces. We can break the bias in our schools, colleges, and universities. Together, we can all break the bias on International Women's Day and beyond. Now, with that call for action, we will also, let's move on to reading the actual Charter for Compassion document, which you may or may not be familiar with. The words of the document echo a lot of what I just read from the International Women's Day website. Would Hyacinth or Donna, would you like to start reading it? Do you have it?
I have it up.
Yeah.
I can read. Um,
Thank
so, the principle of compassion lies at the heart of all religious, ethical, and spiritual traditions, calling us always to treat all others as we wish to be treated ourselves. Compassion impels us to work tirelessly to alleviate the suffering of our fellow creatures, to dethrone ourselves from the center of our world and put another there, and to honor the inviolable sanctity of every single human being, treating everybody without exception, with absolute justice, equity, and respect. It is also necessary in both public and private life to refrain consistently and empathetically from inflicting pain, empathically from inflicting pain, to act or speak violently out of spite, chauvinism, or self-interest, to impoverish, exploit, or deny basic rights to anybody, and to incite hatred by denigrating others, even our enemies, is a denial of our common humanity. We acknowledge that we have failed to live compassionately and that some have even increased the sum of human misery in the name of religion. Therefore, we therefore call upon all men and women, all men and all women, to restore compassion to the center of morality and religion, to return to the ancient principle that any interpretation of scripture that breeds violence, hatred, or disdain is illegitimate, to ensure that youth are given accurate and respectful information about other traditions, religions, and cultures, to encourage a positive appreciation of cultural and religious diversity, to cultivate an informed empathy with the suffering of all human beings, even those regarded as enemies. We urgently need to make compassion a clear, luminous, and dynamic force in our polarized world. Rooted in a principled determination to transcend selfishness, compassion can break down political, dogmatic, ideological, and religious boundaries. Born of our deep interdependence, compassion is essential to human relationships and to a fulfilled humanity. It is the path to enlightenment and indispensable to the creation of a just economy and a peaceful global community.
Thank you. It's nice to just read the words out loud again and just center ourselves to our why. Um, Hyacinth or Donna, what would you say we've like? How would you sum up what the work we've been doing like the past year? Would you like to share some of that with our partnership for Safe and Sacred Now, or even before? How would we?
Well, I can start with I've only been here a year, so I saw the inception of the PSSN, the Partnership for the Safe and Sacred Now, and I remember hearing about it back in the December when I attended one of your events as well, and thinking, what is this? It was really even though for myself, and I think for a lot of people, is what we actually want to have a safe and sacred space, and also to really, I suppose, break this bias. Using the language has been something that I think a lot of people, including myself, found really tricky at the beginning. It was really hard to explain. The
Mm.
more now I think we're living it, it's so much easier. And I know for me, I just heard it. I don't know if it was the brainchild of, of Donna, but I just heard her speaking it so much. Yeah, I just think it'd be good for you to explain how that came about, actually, because
Mhm.
the programming what we done I thought was fantastic, and also the women in the UK really loved it. But yeah, I'd like to know what kind of really what brought that about in the first place.
The PSSN. Yeah, so I have been doing work with Rian Eisler's Center for Partnership Systems for over a decade. And um, partnership is the medicine or the other alternative to the behavior of domination. And what we have is a world full of dominant behaviors right now, from our political spectrum to our economic system to our social systems. It's domination top down, right? And so partnership takes us top down and it turns it around so that we're facing each other. So we're looking eye to eye with each other so that we find and discover our inherent worth and dignity, inherent worth and dignity, right? And so Rianne's partnership has been foundational for how we have shifted things, because you can't have partnership between genders if you're focusing on just one. And to be inclusive, the spectrum is not just male and female. There's it's now expanded to many different spaces that you can find your comfort on the gender spectrum or non-binary, right? So everything is shifting and everything's changing. And so for us to be in true partnership, we have to have our hands open to the truth of someone's um, inherent worth and dignity. And
Mhm.
so we um, looked at partnership and domination, and violence is a result of a dominant system and a dominant behavior. And so we decided we didn't want violence anymore. What do we want? We want safety, right? So if you go back to Buckminster Fuller's quote that you cannot change a system by fighting against the current reality, in order to change something, you've got to create something new that makes the current reality obsolete. And so if we're trying to change or have an effect on the current reality of domination, we choose safety rather than violence. We choose partnership rather than domination, and we do that by remembering our inherent worth and dignity. We have an innate sacredness, and it's that sacredness that we choose to elevate and to explore and discover more and more of ourselves within that paradigm. And when we do that and we see it within ourselves, we can't help but see it in everybody else. When
Mhm.
you know yourself that sacredly and that holy and that valuable, you find everyone else. And that is breaking the bias, is
Mhm.
breaking the bias of saying that one person has more or less inherent worth and dignity, because that's just a false narrative. And so what we've been doing in the last couple of years with women and girls is redefining the narrative to how it works for us. What feels like what we want? What is it? And where are we going? And where are we traveling? And what is ready to be complete? And what is ready to compost? It doesn't have
Mhm.
to be positive, negative. It can just simply be. We're ready to move ahead because humanity is ready to move ahead. And so are our hearts. And that's how we break the bias.
Yeah, and two things like that I really want to highlight. We've been doing. We've really had these courageous conversations. We've aligned with Rihanna Islas. I really like how she says that the opposite of patriarchy is not matriarchy. It is partnerism. So it's a new terminology. shifting narrative. She's using a different language. And that, hi, Vicky. We have Vicky with us, who's also part of our core circle. And this is how we roll. We each come and we shine our light. And this is how we grow, how we have grown. And so I just got thrown out. Rihanna Eisler. So partnerism at the charter. When Donna and I were having these conversations about the possibility of a gender partnership sector, we presented it to the rest of the charter community, family, and it was well received because we all recognize at the charter there is more work to do, like Donna said, and we're ready to do the work. And I think that is, when we today especially are reading about the different stories being shared on breaking the bias. This is not a one-day thing, which most of us agree on, and it's also not just for us women to shout at the top of our lungs about. This is actually today, it would be interesting to see how many of our allies are speaking up, and not just today, not performative, but actually what changes are we seeing. So we've been very good, I believe, in calling out these things, and said, let us first have these conversations. And I'll also bring in how women's rights, we cannot talk about women's rights if we do not bring in the different lived experiences of being a woman in this world, and highlighting, amplifying those voices. And we've been very good at listening to each other. It requires deep listening. It requires courage to use your voice, to step into your power. And we can only do that in community. And what we've been able to create at Women and Girls, you will see proof of that if you go and look at our past recordings, webinars we did the past 2 years. We've been able to create a safe, sacred space for everyone to be able to share. And I think breaking the biases is about modeling what we want to see, and being who we want to see. What do you think? Vicky, why don't you add your...
Well, there it is. There, the book, The Partnership Way, is talking about domination and partnerism, and I just came upon a Harvard Business Review article that talked about old power and new power. And here at Charter, we're focused on the new power of compassion. And it is going to be about partnerships, and it is going to be about looking at the old stories of domination, isolation, accumulation, and how are we going to create new narratives, and how are we going to become mentors for our youth and create a new power of compassion for them also.
Another thing we've been trying to advocate for or speak about is compassion being more than a fluffy quality or something nice to have. We've been talking about fierce compassion, as well, as Christine Neff, the pioneer of self-compassion, teaches about, is we have to embrace all aspects of compassion. Now, and it starts with another thing we've been involved with, the unofficial sustainable development goal that was birthed within our sector, that's called self-awareness and personal agency. It all starts with self. We have to go within. We have to connect with our story and also our limiting beliefs, our own biases, right? What is it that we're helping still uphold doesn't really work? Like, are we aware of that? And once we are aware about who we are and who we want to be, we will know where our agency lies. We will know we have a choice, and we will step into action. Um, and we do it in community. We're huge believers of that, right? We're not here to do this journey alone. And so showing up for one another, supporting one another is another way to achieve. I was speaking of the Sustainable Development Goals. Our sector comes in under the number 5 of gender equality, right? If we are going to align with any of the goals. So we can only achieve gender equality when we pay attention to the words of the Charter for Compassion document, as we just read. We have to call out all stereotypical narratives, call out any interpretation that doesn't serve anyone anymore. And we have to do it together.
Yeah, on this day, this might be a little controversial, but on this day, I don't know any women who have started wars. On this day, it's good to remember that there's wisdom in the voice of women that are not being consulted at global levels of safety. Where's the safety for the Ukrainian women right now and their children? Where's the safety for the Russian women and their children? Like, oh gosh, Sarah, help me out with the proclamation, the Mother's Day proclamation that Julia Ward, thank you, I couldn't come up with Julia's name, thank you, that Julia Ward House said in 1870, in the United States in 1870, this woman, after witnessing the carnage of the Civil War in the United States, said, "No longer will I raise my boys to go across the ocean." Well, this was in 1800s, but she said, "I will no longer raise my boys to go and kill the boys of another woman." Women to women can come together and refuse dominant behavior. We can just refuse to play in the dominant behavior and to come together and align with partnership, to come together and align with peace. I've been on this planet for 56 years and I was born into the Vietnam War. In my lifetime, I don't know that I've seen peace, and I'd like to. I think that's my human right. I'd like to experience peace on this planet. And so, in order to break the bias, we need to have more women's voices in higher places, making peaceful, just choices for humanity. It's a voice that's missing right now.
And Eisler's, she's really analyzed history and domination through there. And she talks about the hero's journey. And I've been investigating The Sound of the Silver Horn, which is more of a female version of the hero's journey. And also there's Louise Diamond came out with Beyond Win-Win, a heroic journey of conflict transformation. So these are all new versions of the hero's journey that we need to start investigating also.
Thanks.
Great. My pleasure.
Thank you for sharing those great resources. You know, it's all about, so I found a quote of former First Lady Michelle Obama that says, "The measure of any society is how it treats its women and girls." And this is a quote from a speech she did in 2016. Looking at the systems that we have in society, dismantling those or creating, like Donna, you referred to Buckminster Fuller's quote. I think we were called to create a new conversation, right? A new proposition on how to human, Donna's words, how to human well, and realizing, each of us realizing we have a responsibility, individually as well as collectively, to bring our voice to the table. And those who don't have access to the table, those who have the privileges to be at the table, they make space for those who haven't had access to this day. And so I really love the expansive narrative that we have been co-creating. And I'd love for whoever is going to listen and who is listening in to join us on this journey. It's a long one, but it's so worth it. And we believe, you have to believe in it. We believe in it, in this, right? And locally, we can bring it to our, bring this knowledge to our families, to our communities, the different communities we're part of, to our workplaces, to our schools. The ripples are created that way, right? You find out about something, then you have the responsibility to pass that information on.
And thanks for pointing up that we need to be both independently and collectively. And I love how you mentioned Michelle Obama, because my quote is from former President Obama, and he talks about we need to be both the protester and the voter. And
Right.
so both and needs to become part of our dialogue also.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think, again, when I in the beginning said we're definitely committed to walking the talk, right? By renaming or birthing the gender partnership sector. It's a vision, and we're still working on it, right? Giving a platform to everyone to do the work that they're called to do. So at Women and Girls, the work we've been called to do is to increase our own awareness, learn together, and to host conversations, host safe, sacred space for all of us to be able to speak our truth and to listen to each other. I've definitely felt that in my years in the charter movement, and it's something I have not seen anywhere else of the other involvements that I have had or have.
Partnership is curious. It comes with open hands, and it's not there for the answer so much as it is there for the experience. We've had 2,500 years of domination, and we don't know what partnership is going to look like yet, but we know what we don't want it to look like. 2,500 years of domination. So we get to be curious with each other. We get to be gentle with each other. We get to use traits that are both feminine and masculine, which is caring and compassion. Those are both, those cross the gender spectrum. I don't want to get stuck on male and female, but it crosses the gender spectrum. These are human traits: to be compassionate, to be curious, to hold reverence for the profound simplicity of your existence.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're doing, is we're finding those spaces to look into each other's eyes and to remember our profound sacred experience here is elevated and matured and enjoyed together when we gather together, right?
I like it.
There's so much elation and joy and medicine
Mm-hmm.
for what's ailing all of our hearts right now. the freedom of not knowing what's coming next, except to know what we don't want anymore.
Right. And we do have to look at our shadow stories
Totally.
to analyze what we don't want anymore. And again, to mention the sound of the silver horn, she talks about, what kind of authority, what kind of power is a good power. And so it's not of domination, it is of partnership.
Service.
And service. Very good. And it's of mentoring. How are we going to help the learner become the teacher? Are we going to just keep forcing more words and ideas down their throat, or are we going to come up with a new version of social justice that allows for creativity?
Mm-hmm.
Hyacinth.
I was going to call on Hyacinth.
Do you have thoughts on that gorgeous brain of yours?
Remarks.
I was actually so embedded in what you were saying, but for me, I was actually just thinking, well, it is. I agree with everything you've actually said, and I think so much of not just the partnership, but of this way of working is really about becoming just really soul conscious, like Sarah said, who you are, where you fit in this place, and it's really about just stepping into being aligned with yourself, because I think when we're not when we're not aligned with ourselves, we actually don't want to work in groups a lot of the time. Lots of the time people are not trusting. When we actually don't forgive, all of these virtues like the compassion, forgiveness, love, if those things are not in alignment and we're not really soul conscious and becoming, just really working on who we're becoming, then actually we can block all of that. And I think I've seen it a lot. It's actually this year's 35 years I've been working in the community, and I just can't believe it's that long. But I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, done some amazing work in that time. But also the most powerful work is when everybody is starting actually to accept who we are. And that's what this whole Breaking the Bias is about. Accepting diversity, accepting we're in different parts of the world, we have different cultures, how we are, how we think, and actually just respecting that we all have different views. And even if we don't agree on those views, we are working for that greater good still. And I think once all of that is in place, then we really just start moving, and actually it's just moving and shaking with so much. Yeah. That's my little thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
we would love for you to join us in May this year with the Women and Girls Initiative of the Gender Partnership Sectors. We are taking on some difficult and deep subjects around safety and women. And so we will be screening a film in the summer in June called India's Daughter. And it's a rough one, to be quite honest. And we did a lot of consideration of how we were going to present this film and wrap this film in love and compassion, because it's a rough subject. And so we've decided that our programming this year is mostly going to run from May through the end of August. And it's, sorry, Vic, May from the end of August as we wrap this film in compassion. So we'll start in May with the book, with the global read called did you write it down?
From Women to the World?
From Women to the World. Thank you. From Women to the World. And it's a collection of letters from women all around the world to the world. And as we start this dialogue around safety and sacredness and feminine energy, we will, like I said, open with that. We will move into June with our movie India's Daughter, and we will conclude this exploration with a film in July called, oh, thank you, Felipe, for adding that to the chat. In July, we will go into a film about grief and how to move through all of these very present emotions that everybody on the planet's feeling, right? And so this movie is called Remember, and you can find those at the charterforcompassion.org in our film series and our global reads. And we hope to see you. Oh, thank you.
Can I add also, Global Read in March is going to be about a female hero's journey. What would Messia do?
What would Macy do?
Maisie. Yeah, sorry about that. So we might be able to post that in the chat room also. I'd appreciate that. So I'm looking forward to that global read.
And with that, we'd like to say thank you for joining us. And if you are curious and want to learn more, please reach out to us. Go to the Charter website, and our email, if you want to reach us directly, is womenandgirls@charterforcompassion.org. Get in touch with us, and let's see how we can co-create. Thank you. And let's all continue the work of breaking the bias and helping one another. Thank you so much.
Thank you.